Jilani, as Muslims, and particularly as people from Ahle Sunnah wal Jama'ah, the Aqidah of our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, of the great companions, may Allah be pleased with them, of the Tabi'een, and of those who followed the Tabi'een. May Allah have mercy upon them all. Our Aqidah states that stating something to be good or bad, to be beautiful or ugly, is not dependent on our logic or our own taste, as they say. Because this is the methodology and the aqidah of al-Mu'tazila, which is a deviant sect in Islam, one of the 73 sects that the Prophet has warned us from, sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Let's just quickly listen to what the Ustaz or the Shaik is stating there, because I think part of our learning and part of our understanding of the Qur'an and of our philosophical outlook in life is to listen to all the viewpoints and to make sense of it. Right, so what this Ustaz or this Shaik is saying is that based on the Aqidah or the basic creed of the Ahle Sunna wal Jama'ah, logic does not have a role to play. And as he continues there, he says that if we would consider logic to play a central role in the way in which we decide between right and wrong, beautiful and ugly, if we do place logic at the center, then we would be following the Aqidah of the Mu'tazila. And the Mu'tazila, according to the Shaikh, is one of the 72 deviant sects. And also what he says, in fact, by implication, because one of those deviant sects, in fact, those 72 deviant sects, in fact, are all will be thrown in hell. Now, this is basically the position of the Shaikh. I just want to hear if there's anything that is adding to that point still, and then we can continue. I just wanted to summarize his viewpoint. Of course, I differ with that, because the whole premise of this channel is that we say that logical reasoning forms the basis of our understanding. And it relates and it links to another core principle that we uphold, and that is that our God cannot be unjust. Because if our God is unjust, we have nothing to hope for. And then we have no reason to live a life that is righteous. Because if God will punish the righteous and reward the evil, then we are basically lost. We are then doomed. And we have no prospect of any salvation. And so our core creed, as those who uphold rationalism, is that we have hope because we have a God that is just. And all the evidence in nature points towards a just God. It points towards a God that is that creates balance, equilibrium. And if we look outside of our own humanity into nature, then we see justice, we see rahmah, we see kindness. And so as a rationalist scholar myself, I cannot support the idea that logic and reasoning plays no part in in fact, it goes against the very Qur'an. The Qur'an, in fact, says, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ. Do they not contemplate or think? So the idea of thinking is different from the idea of following a hadith. You see, in fact, when it comes to the hadith, the Qur'an says something else. It says, so then with what hadith then will you go and follow except this hadith? So let's just quickly continue and try and make sense of what the Shaikh is saying.
Muslims believe that stating this is good or bad is dependent on what the Qur'an says. It's dependent on what the Prophet ﷺ had taught us. And this is why Islam is not a religion where logic prevails, because logic differs from one person to the other. What you see good, I may see to be bad.
Yeah, but now that is, you know, if I had the mind of a 5-year-old, and unfortunately the Muslims' minds are way beyond that of a 5-year-old in the world, then the first thing you will say is, but even the Qur'an, even the Hadith can be interpreted by two persons in two different ways. And the Hadith, for example, have been interpreted in many ways. Why do you think there's a Shia and a Sunni school? Because the Shia sees Hadith in one way and the Sunni sees the Hadith in a different way. So for the Shaik to say that the Hadith is better than logic because logic results in opposing views arising, Hadith the same. What's the difference? I mean, wars have been fought between Sahabis. Blood has been shed. Why? Because some people had a different Hadith that they were operating on. So that's a false statement. That is factually incorrect.
It's not something according to our preferences. It is.
Yeah, but now he's mentioning now something else. From logic to preferences. Logic is not the same as preferences. 1 + 1 is equal to 2. That's not my preference. That's a logical answer. And so we cannot claim that logic equals personal preference.
According to the Qur'an and to the Sunnah. Someone who passes wind is obliged to perform wudu. Someone who burps and gets this wind out of his mouth is not supposed to perform wudu. And if he...
Now you see, that is classically what you call a straw man argument. And a straw man argument is you've set up a false target, and then you are going to shoot down that false target. But the target in the first place is not legitimate. Like, for example, he's saying now that in fiqh, passing wind through the bottom passage necessitates wudu, while passing burping through the mouth does not necessitate wudu. And he's using that to say that logic, there's no logic in it. But as a rationalist, I'm here to tell him that, yes, he's right, there is no logic in it, because the Qur'an never states that you have to make wudu when you pass wind through the bottom end. It only states that you have to wash when you have defecated, because you've added that on. You see, you can't add illogical stuff onto the religion, and then you want to say religion is not logical. That's unfair.
He does, then he would be sinful for innovating.
Let's listen to that again.
He is not supposed to perform wudu, and if he does,
let's just quickly listen to that.
To perform wudu. To our preferences. It is according to the Qur'an and to the Sunnah. Someone who passes wind is obliged to perform wudu.
According who?
Someone who burps and gets this wind out of his mouth is not supposed to perform wudu, and if he does, then he would be sinful for innovating. Logically, one says, it's the same air that is coming out from different passages. He said, it is not something for you to decide. It is according to the Qur'an and to the Sunnah. Islam is a religion of cleanliness. So when you want to pray, you have to wash your...
So unfortunately, I just want to say that this type of logic is the logic that results in Muslims turning away from Islam, unfortunately, because our people are no longer stupid. They think for themselves. They reason for themselves. The West, the Muslim world, are not in a mess for no reason. They're in a mess because they have abandoned rational thinking, logical thinking. And where are they running to? They're running to the West, they're running to the UK, they're running to Europe, they're running to Australia, to America, where what is what is the basis of those societies? Rational thinking, logical thinking. Not perfectly so. I've got a lot of criticism against those societies, but we know that the trains run on time. We know that the societies run on a more or less clean basis. Not perfectly, but the reason is those are societies that are based on rational thinking, which is under threat, I mean, we know that the irrational minded people are trying to threaten the West also. And so I just want to say that, you know, if that is your Islam, Islam where there's no logic, where there's no reasoning, that is not this Islam of the Qur'an. The Qur'an, go and open the Qur'an, you see so many places where it says, do they not reason? Do they not think? Do they not ponder? And those are all challenges to you to ponder, to reflect, to make sense. Islam has to make sense. Otherwise, it would not be incumbent upon you. Is this not the book that gives the best of arguments? A bayan, a book of proofs, a book of evidence, a book of ayat. And so to say that things do not have to make sense, we cannot accept that Islam.